Hello and welcome to Vikings Territory Breakdown. I'm Joe Oberle, senior writer at VikingsTerritory.com and PurplePTSD.com, and that's Mark Craig. He's the NFL insider, Vikings writer, Hall of Fame selector, All-Pro selector for this Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. And we're back here with another installment of this podcast, and of course, we got to lead the way talking about quarterbacks as we will every day and always for the rest of time if you're a Minnesota Vikings person. But there's plenty of theories about rumors of speculation for potential changes to the quarterback situation. But one overriding notion that Mark brought up last week and we maintain here is they need to get a veteran quarterback in there to compete with JJ. Is that what you felt like Kevin O'Connell was saying this week at his press conference, Mark?
Well, I don't know if they were saying it, but I mean, they didn't object to it. Let's put it that way. When it was presented, it seemed like I was unable to make that day. It seems like common sense tells you where it has to go. It's not like it was last year, and under the similar, if the situation that's now had been last year, Daniel Jones might have stayed because they offered Daniel Jones more money to stay than what Indy gave him, but yet he saw competing with Anthony Richardson as a chance to he was right to start is a better opportunity than to stay here and compete with JJ McCarthy. He probably underestimated JJ's ability to get hurt every game, but I think going into this one, it's going to be, the next, if they get a veteran that comes in, it's not going to be, a Sam Howell who knows his place and is just happy to be there. It's going to be someone that comes in and says, I can take this kid's job. I mean, and in doing that, it doesn't have to mean that you get rid of JJ. JJ McCarthy, I think, turns 23 this week or next week or he's still young enough for them to have to compete for the job, maybe not win the job, play at some point next year, and still be your future quarterback. I mean, my goodness, let's just look over at Green Bay and see how long it takes to kind of, to bring in a guy, develop him, and then you have a quarterback. So I'm not, don't throw him away, but have someone that can take the job from him if that's how it plays out.
I totally agree with that assessment of what you can do with JJ McCarthy. But is that kind of not the model anymore for coaches, especially new ones who want, they brought him in here and said, he's our guy. We're going to anoint him. We're going to save all this money in the cap and buy. So they had a different model in mind, and now they're kind of flip-flopping a different way.
No, they're not flip-flopping. The reality is their model got broken 5 times in 2 years, as far as, he's our guy. Well, he got hurt. He missed all of his rookie year. He's our guy. Well, he got hurt in the second game of the season. He's out 5 games. He's our guy. He got a concussion. He's our guy. He got a hairline fracture. He's our guy. He took himself out because his hairline fracture was swelling. So the reality was forced upon them. I think Kwesi was asked if they made a mistake, and in a roundabout way, I think he admitted that they did. But he also threw in the fact that they had all these other injuries too, So yeah, they did have a lot of injuries. The bottom line for me is they need another NFL starting caliber quarterback, and they need depth, and that's a lot to acquire. And so the what doesn't matter what the model is for the NFL. The model in Chicago worked because that kid has started 37 straight games. If JJ was on his 37th straight start, we might be seeing a different story. Also, JJ, which was brought up by the Brain Trust, is JJ came in with the fewest amount of starts of all those 6 guys. Bo Nix, who's taken 2 after him, had like 3 careers in college compared to JJ. So, you can't, it's just not a broad brush that you can use on these guys, because JJ's situation, being the youngest guy, being the least experienced guy in college, and now being an injury prone risk, everything had to change.
That just means that when he finally does get the skills and the acumen and the experience to be the quarterback of the future, it'll last longer because he hasn't had that experience and that wear and tear in his butt.
The thing is, there are, unlike, from what I remember about Christian Ponder, his going through his first year as a starter, he did have one game in Carolina where you're like, okay, he had a last minute, march down the field. I remember some of us writing, probably things that are too glowing about Christian Ponder, but I still think Christian didn't show some of the things this guy shows. He shows ability. He's just really raw, but he's also, he just gets hurt too much. That's just the reality of it.
You tell folks that we shouldn't get rid of him. Are you hearing that people want to, or that?
No, I don't think they're. But I'm saying, in today's world, if you say, we'll just use the Hall of Fame as an example. If someone says, "Hey," which I don't answer those questions, but they'll say, "Hey, is so-so a Hall of Famer?" And unless it's, Aaron Rodgers, or unless it's, Reggie White, or Tom Brady. You ask me if Tom Brady's a Hall of Famer, I'll say you're damn right, he's a Hall of Famer. But
careful out guy, there, Mark. Careful out
if there's a guy that's in the middle somewhere, or he deserves to be talked about. If you say no, you think, well, you think he's a piece of crap. No, everything's black and white.
Yeah.
In sports, in the world, in politics, everything. And
it would be the stupidest move ever to get rid of him.
No. So I'm saying if that's the case, because you tend to listen, or I don't listen to much anymore because it's exhausting. But the few things you see, they've determined JJ's, they got to move on from JJ. Well, I don't know what percentage of people say that, but I'm saying if they do, that's ridiculous. There's something there that's viable, but you've got to protect yourself. Justin Jefferson essentially wasted a year of his career on this year with, and hats off to that guy for how he conducted himself. Didn't get a sniff of all-pro consideration whenever he's probably still the best receiver in football. So they owe it to the Justin Jeffersons, to all the other guys in that locker room, to be protected. It can't hinge. I'm not saying everything hinged on JJ, but that's a big part of it. You can't just say, well, we hope he stays healthy, and then here you go again. And then Justin's 29 years old, and then he's, you know what I mean? It's work with him, but have a better plan B.
Totally agree. Well, so I want to do this little exercise where we talk about some of the people that may or may not be available to come in here and fill that position that you just described, that Daniel Jones passed on. And speaking of Daniel Jones, let's start with him first. He was, as you say, he was here and for a short time, then he left, but and had a great run in Indy until he got hurt. Is he another injury-prone guy? Just kidding. But my statement is he's been here. He's done that. I don't think he'll come back, and I'm sure it would cost them more than it would have cost them last year if he does.
That's interesting. I don't think it would, because while he was 7-1 and was an MVP candidate, he got hurt. My thing with him would be, I don't want to be, giving him a 1-year deal when it's the first year after an Achilles. So then you'd have to give him more than 1 year. The injury would scare me away. I'd have to move on. No, I wouldn't do Daniel Jones.
Okay. Here's a name you'll probably recognize. He's all over the media these days, and he's going to be doing a game this weekend as an analyst. Kirk Cousins, says he wants to come back to Atlanta, but I get the feeling he would leave in a heartbeat if he could. No one wants his contract. I wouldn't trade for him because then you're taking on that contract. There's all kinds of people that are saying he's coming back here. Any thoughts on old KC?
Oh, I didn't know he was doing a game. What games?
Yeah, I don't know what game he is, but he's lined up to be an analyst for somebody. Yeah.
No, I mean, good Lord, they paid at the altar of Kirk Cousins and his magic pen they did their due diligence. The only way I would do Kirk is if Atlanta said, yeah, we'll take the contract and you can have him. He's not going to cost you anything. Yeah, I'd take him then. But no, no, just enough's enough. I love Kirk as a person, but as a quarterback and all the investment and the resources you have to pour into him for what you get, nope.
Okay, I mean, well said. I may have misspoke. He might be sitting on the dais of one of those half.
Oh yeah. I could see that as in his future if he's able to be quick enough, I guess, in his thoughts.
Yeah. Okay, the next guy on my list is our old buddy Aaron Rodgers. Let's see, what did I say here? I would say after what we saw from him in the game on Sunday, that he was, and the media availability after, he's not real happy how it all ended. I would say he will retire if he can stomach having his last pass being a pick six for eternity. But he might not be able to stomach that. He just looked like he had the sourest look on his face. And when they kept asking him about Mike Tomlin after, he goes, I already bleeping answered that, and stormed off. Well, I didn't storm off. He said, thanks and see ya. So Aaron's a little unhappy right now, which I get. His time away from Green Bay has not treated him well, but it was a pretty good year for him this year. He got back to the playoffs, but what do you think about him? Is he coming here finally, Mark?
No, I don't know if he is or not, but to me, every career has an end, and that if that wasn't an exclamation point on the end of a career, I don't know what was. That's no. For me, it's no, because I don't want a guy who's washed up coming in and by body language or whatever, blaming everyone else for problems. And
thank you. I totally agree.
So no, but really the reason is, Mother Nature or Father Time wins at some point, and Father Time has defeated you, Aaron, and it's over. It's over. I'm sorry.
I think you could say the same thing for our next guy, Russell Wilson. My two words would be, please no. He's cooked. He lost his job to Jackson Dart up in New York, and now it sounds like the Giants are going to hire John Harbaugh. At least that's a report. They're trying to get it done today. But what do you think about Russell Wilson, who's been a journeyman since he left Seattle?
Same thing. I mean, it didn't work in Pittsburgh, didn't work in New York. It's over. Sorry, but it's over. He's not even to the point where, like Aaron Rodgers, you could say, hey, he got Pittsburgh to the playoffs. You could maybe sell it as, hey, Aaron's got one more year on the right team. I don't think that you could say that Russell Wilson is a good fit on the right team. I think he's done. He's cooked, as you said.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. Next guy is Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah, whatever his last name is. In my opinion, he is an injury gamble that the Vikings don't need. I mean, with all his concussions, I mean, you could see him spending most of the time on the sidelines, just like Ryan Kelly did this year. So I'm not.
Yeah,
I like his talent when he's playing well. I don't think they can take that gamble.
No, I don't like his contract. His contract is ridiculous.
Oh, is it?
And I guess if we want to make some good to come out of signing a center that had 3 concussions and then got 3 more, it'll prevent you from signing a quarterback who's had concussions. To me, he's not good enough for the money, and he's damaged goods, and it's a concussion. You're bringing in, you don't go out and get someone who you want to rely on their health because of JJ McCarthy and bring in Tua, for God's sakes.
Next guy on the list, Geno Smith, probably come as a backup price, but he's getting too old for my money. I don't know if there's enough there. Is he getting?
No,
he want to start too.
He had a nice resurgence and got paid for it. and then everybody who, he got paid for it, and then poor Pete Carroll paid for it too, with a one and done in Las Vegas by putting his trust in that, continuing. And no, he's not good enough. He's over the hill. So you're not presenting a lot of options for me yet, Joe. So
this one I'm mildly intrigued by, only because I've seen him in person a couple times, but his career just hasn't played out with the promise that he had. Is Arizona Cardinal Kyle Murray? Maybe the quarterback whisperer can save him. I don't know, but what are your thoughts? You've probably seen more of him than I have.
well, I have never been a big fan. When he got that, he's another guy is a $50 million quarterback. I mean, you certainly don't take on that.
Oh, I didn't realize
his contract. I mean, that's a no, that's a deal breaker there. And on top of that, you'd see him run around and make some plays and do some things, but then you just saw stretches where it all gets thrown out the window because he just makes bad decisions. So no, but the contract is, I don't know how anybody that's looking, or the Cardinals, if you want to move on from him, it's the contract. Well, who else wants that contract?
You think that's what they'll do because they had a quarterback that I can't even think of his name. I know who it is, but that came in and did pretty well in backing him up.
Well, when you get involved in a situation like this, Cleveland's a perfect example. They got, I mean, Deshaun Watson should be just thrown away, but they can't throw him away because the remainder of his guaranteed contract gets put on that year. So what's probably going to happen in Cleveland is he'll get extended a year just so they could kick his money out another year.
Oh my God.
And he won't be around for that last year, I don't think, but so they can spread the dead money out. Or I thought maybe, if they had kept Stefanski around, you'd let him work with Deshaun one last year, and because you can't get rid of him, I don't think, or you just eat that money. Like, what Denver did with Russell Wilson, 2 years ago when they, let him go, and Pittsburgh picked him up and gave him $1 million, while Denver paid, $80 million or whatever it was. You get into these quarterback conundrums, and we think Kirk's situation was bad. Kirk's was mild compared to some of the quarterback problems you see around the league when it comes to money.
Oh my goodness. This next guy, the despondent Vikings backer that I am says, likely it's what we'll get given the salary cap, but that's a little harsh. Max Brosmer, did we see enough about him to consider him anything more than maybe a third quarterback?
No. I mean, hey, he outkicked his coverage. I mean, he, in saying that I think he's a third quarterback, that's a compliment compared to where he came from and 1 year of major college football. And no, he's a guy you keep on the practice squad because if you have a complete meltdown again, then he could finish out your year and maybe give you a chance to win. But no, he's not a backup.
That's the tough thing about the Vikings situation. They have two quarterbacks, very young quarterbacks, that they haven't been able to see enough from to even really make they have in practice and stuff, but I'm saying as fans, I mean,
no, but
go ahead.
No, what I'm saying is they shouldn't have had to see any of Max Brosmer. The fact that they saw Max Brosmer on the field means that they had a bomb exploded in the middle of their locker room, and by all rights, Max Brosmer should have just been seen by KO's eyes and developed by. He should never have been. He started two games and
started 2 games, finished a couple, I think.
He never should have been on the field. And that's what I'm saying. You got to get a situation where I guess the goal would be to see all of JJ, see no of Max Brosmer, and have a guy in the middle who either pushes JJ or takes his job.
Yeah. My only point is I'm just saying we're in a unique situation here in that regard with those 2 young guys, and you don't even know what you have them in either of them. He had played 7 games, 1-1 record, 328 yards, 0 TDs, and 4 interceptions. So he had a rough go of it. Now here's the dream one that everybody wants, but it's totally a pipe dream. Is Joe Burrow? It wouldn't come true because it's too expensive. What you'd have to give up to get him is just too much. And there's another guy, with all due respect, is an injury risk. Then you got him and JJ, probably neither can finish the season. But anyway, any smoke behind the scenes to that, or any fire behind the smoke that keeps surfacing about that one?
Well, no, he's never going to get out of Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati, paid him, then they paid his top receiver, then they paid his second receiver, and I haven't really kept track. If is he disgruntled? He just kind of answered very cryptically in a postseason interview that well, maybe it kind of made us think maybe he's thinking about it's time to move on. And their problems are created. I mean, he helped create some of their problems by by having that kind of contract, and
the defense.
But he'd be great to have. And if you could say Joe Burrow comes here and he doesn't get hurt and he plays the next, 7 years, I would give 5 first-round draft picks for him.
Wow. Yeah.
But you don't get that luxury of knowing. So yeah, to me, with the contract, the fact that it's never going to happen, and the other fact that he's, he does get hurt. I mean, has he won? I think he's won 1. He might have won 2 comeback player. At some point, whenever you keep winning comeback player of the year award, that's a red flag for me.
Someone asked him if he could win it again this year, but coming back in the same season, because he did play well at the end of the year. But here's a few names in the lightning round that you can comment on any of them. Malik Willis over at the Packers, Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Joe Flacco, and even Justin Herbert is being mentioned. These are all just kind of silly names. I think Carson's probably done in Minnesota. I'm not interested in Garoppolo. Malik Willis intrigues me, but he'd probably, he would be a guy who could compete with him. And Joe Flacco, I don't think he can keep doing it. Justin Herbert, it's just silly talk. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say, Flacco. Malik Willis is interesting. I don't know. It seems like the Packers would want to retain him, or I'm not sure what his contract situation is. Carson Wentz is my safety net. Like Carson Wentz is where I start. Like if I can't get anyone else, I say Carson. But I don't know. The injury doesn't concern me quite as much, with it being his other shoulder, and but he's like the guy where you go, okay, if we can't get anyone else, who are the other ones? Flacco. Flacco would be intriguing. He might be maybe I put him a notch ahead of Carson in the.
You just like him because he played in Cleveland. He's got John Mark. Come on.
I mean, they should have kept him in Cleveland. It's like they trade him to the Cincinnati, and then you fire the coach because you're auditioning 2 rookies the rest of the year. But who are the other ones?
You got Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Herbert.
Well, Herbert's not going to be available.
No.
It's going to take him a while to heal from that beat down he took the whole season was once Joe Alton and all their linemen got hurt. He's lucky that he survived that year healthy.
Amazing how that works. Caleb Williams goes crazy down in Chicago because he got a great offensive line, and ours is hurt all year, and so are our quarterbacks. Go figure. Garoppolo, he's been around he was back with the Belichick Patriots, for crying out loud. He, original, wasn't he? At one point, I think he was. Or was he was in Kansas City? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think he's another one. At some point, maybe beggars don't become choosers, but, he's one of those where maybe, you just got to see what else you can get.
If I was interested in anybody on this list, I think I would be interested in Malik Willis, and I don't think you're going to get him out of the Packers without more than he's worth. They're not going to trade within the division, so
Yeah, I don't know what his contract situation is. I don't know where that I mean, I don't know where that name, how that comes up. So
yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, maybe I'll check that in the break time here. So with that, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and Mark.
You didn't give Mac Jones.
Oh God, he was on the top of the list. I went down too far. I'm sorry. He was the number one, and I passed him by. Let's talk about him when we come back, because I really want to talk about him. All right, come on back to Vikings Territory Breakdown. Okay, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown, and we were talking about quarterbacks that could potentially come here. And the top one on my list, I passed just by. So I think the brim of my hat got in the way. I couldn't read up that far. Now I have no idea what my problem is. My problem is the Vikings quarterback situation. Mac Jones, 49ers backed up Brock Purdy this year, who had another injury-plagued season. There's a guy who can't stay on the field either very well, old Brock Purdy. But he's a good player when he does. Jones is 2025 stats. He played 11 games, 5-3 record, almost 70% completion, 2,100 yards, 13 T's, and 6 INTs. He's got a pretty good numbers throughout the deal. He reminds me of a Daniel Jones, because he a guy that was drafted, didn't work out, went on, became a backup somewhere, and actually has some good. Sam Darnold, another example. So there's some possibility there, but I don't think San Francisco is going to let him go. I think you'd have to.
I did see Brock Purdy healthy in a Super Bowl. I saw him win an NFC Championship game. I saw him upset the Eagles. So he has got a little bit of health going for him too. Mac Jones, to me, you could say, and I think other people, maybe Suhan wrote that, why would they get rid of Mac Jones? Well, to me, depends on what you give for him. Because Mac Jones, like I said, signed the dumbest contract in recent football history by doing 2 years with the 49ers. He goes in, he plays 8 games, he wins 5 of them for a team that's now going to the NFC divisional round. The iron is hot for him to, get a Sam Darnold contract, take that 1 year, prove it, and go and get your money. And the 49ers, they get him back for another year, but what's the chances of him starting and winning 5 games next year? So their ability to get a better draft pick is right now. And the way Kyle Shanahan is, he brought in Sam Darnold, developed him as a backup quarterback. O'Connell got the coach of the year, the guru notice and all that stuff. It sort of started with Darnold going to San Francisco and working with Shanahan and that group in a similar system. Then he comes to Minnesota and takes off. Well, Mac Jones went there and also played, and he could come over and take off in Minnesota. And I don't know what it would take, but I would overpay for that. I would overpay for a Mac Jones, because I think that's the closest thing that you would have to durability, ability, closest thing you could have to like recreating what happened with Darnold. I still, the easy thing is to say, well, they should have kept Darnold and paid him and developed JJ. Well, I think you had to pay too much for him. So this would be a way of creating. I don't think that, Mac Jones would come in. He wouldn't cost you as much as Darnold for that 1 year. You'd have that year. You might have to overpay draft compensation, but that's the one I would be kicking the tires on the hardest.
Yeah. You said that you thought it was a bad contract that he signed, and I get your point, but how do you know? I mean, a guy in his position who is a young journeyman trying to land somewhere, how do you know that you're going to get that opportunity to play 11 games in a season?
There's a knack of betting on yourself, like Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins betting on himself is he's undefeated when he's betting on when it comes to financially
He's
betting
lucky.
on himself. And he had the great health throughout those years where he was franchise tagged in Washington, and then he was played ball enough here and just kept getting more contracts. You gamble on yourself. Now, I don't know. I'm not in, maybe it's just the 49ers had the upper hand and said, hey, if you want to come here, you got to give us 2 years. And granted, it's, just like, but Sam Darnold wasn't dealing with a position of strength either, so I'd really like to know how a 2-year contract came out of that, because so much of this is like you signed one and then hey, if I get to play, I'm gonna crush it and I'm gonna go somewhere else. I just wonder. I wonder how that came about, because that to me is the only way, that they let him go, is that, hey, if we keep him here and he just sits on the bench and he doesn't do anything, everyone's going to forget that he won 5, or it's going to be distant memory, and he won't get as much from compensation.
But yeah, and if his contract ends, and everybody will come looking for him. Did you watch him a bit this season? I didn't see a lot of him, but you really liked what you saw, and he could come in here and compete for this job and or get it and help.
Yeah, I think he's very similar to what Darnold, where Darnold kind of, where he was, and I think, I'm not saying that, I'm not going to say he's going to come in and win 14 games and go somewhere else and win 14 games. Who would have thought that was Sam Darnold? But that's the close, age wise, tough. There was one game where he just got the crap beat out of him and they won. I mean, what the 49ers did this year, it's too bad that they didn't. I think if they had beaten Seattle in week 18, Shanahan would be coach of the year.
Yeah.
He might still be coach of the year. I don't know, but I think that probably knocked some of the voters off of him. But he's the best coach in football right now. I mean, what he's done and where he's gotten to.
Did you vote for him?
We're not supposed to say who we voted for.
I know, that's why I asked. I knew you wouldn't answer. Speaking of which, Mark did vote this past week on All Pro, the All Pros, and 2 Vikings made it. Will Reichard makes All Pro, but doesn't make the Pro Bowl. And I know Mark was lamenting that. He's been on the Reichard bandwagon all year. And his long snapper makes second team All Pro, but he's made All Pro in the past. 2 questions. A, what's up with that? How does that just point out the flaws in the voting system for the Pro Bowl, or what?
Well, the voting system for the Pro Bowl is like fans, and
I
mean, it's fans, it's the players. The players, they walk around with the player. The players half the time don't know who to vote for. The fans aren't voting. There's a little bit of bias into what the fans are doing.
Right.
I think the Associated Press that's recognized it for history's sake of who, whenever when a guy goes in the Hall of Fame, or when the guy's being argued for a Hall of Fame, the Associated Press All Pro team or the All Decade team, which is done through the Hall of Fame, that's supposed to be the bedrock one, and you could say, there's all kinds of All Pros and honors out there, but that's the one. So, I remember when in 19, maybe it was 19, when Kendricks wasn't a Pro Bowler. I remember standing there talking to him. I said, it doesn't matter. You're going to be All Pro, I think. And he was. And he ended up making the Pro Bowl because, nobody wanted to play in the Pro Bowl. Well, now there isn't a Pro Bowl. So I don't know if you have guys that want to, that they have to replace anyone to go out and play.
There's no game anymore.
They haven't played the Pro Bowl in a couple of years.
They do
the flag. They play the flag game or whatever.
Oh, so they still have an event. Yeah, I mean they
have an event, but I mean it's not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean they were playing. They were playing touch football anyways.
Yes,
I think at the end, anyways.
So, question on DePaulo. Is he going to retire? There's been you heard some talk about
why. Why would he retire?
What I'm saying.
I mean, my my all-pro team, I had Reichert as a first teamer because he was the best kicker. I mean, he went head-to-head with the Dallas guy and beat him. I mean, you know what I'm saying? In that game, had only 2 misses. He's the only guy who had higher than 92%. I think it was 93.8, and he didn't have a missed PAT. He was a machine. I mean, I think
Did he get a lot of votes?
What's that?
Did he get a lot of votes from the?
Well, he won.
Well, I understand that. I mean, was it, you know, as unanimous or as you?
Well, no, Aubrey. It was relatively close. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Aubrey was second team. I kept DePaulo as he was my first team long snapper. You know, that operation. I mean, the punter. I had Wright as a second team on my second team. So Wright was my second team. Reichert was my first team. Why in the world would I take the defending all-pro long snapper and demote him? You know, whenever they were that great in operation. So he was my first team all-pro selection.
So what happened there? How come he didn't get?
I mean, he didn't make he wasn't the Pro Bowl. And I think honestly, some of the voters might be like, "Who am I going to vote for long snapper?"
Wow.
You know, there are experts you can talk to, and they see it with a lot finer tooth eye than we're ever going to see it. But to me, it was like he was the All-Pro first team last year, and he had to be first team All-Pro this year. The other one, I was the only guy to vote for him, but I don't care. Eric Wilson was one of my 2 linebackers, first team All-Pro. And you could say, well, you know, there's that guy in Minnesota, he's a homer or whatever. No, I mean, they had a top 5 defense in scoring, top 5 defense in yards, top 5 defense in third down. And you're going to tell me that they get nobody on first or second team? I understand that, you know, they didn't make the playoffs, but Eric Wilson was the best team on one of the best defenses. He made the most splash plays. He impacted beyond his stats. I think he was number 1 among linebackers in pressures. Now you could say that, well, that comes from Flores' system. Okay. You know, but you still got to have an athlete in there who can do it. 6.5 sacks, I think 4 forced fumbles, something like that.
Yeah, great.
Over 100 tackles. He was the best player, impacted the most plays on a defense that was top 5 in some of the key categories. And I don't have any problem. Now, this was a kind of a difference between, you know, several years ago, you'd be afraid to stand out. You'd be like, you know, no one else is going to vote for Eric Wilson, so I can't put myself out there. Screw it. I mean, I watched him every game, you know, and was a top guy for me. And I'll defend it. I'll watch tape and tell people.
Last year with Jonathan Gennard.
Yeah, that was a little more on a global. That was my ribs were exposed a little bit more on that, but I still felt strongly on that. And in my second team, I put Jalen Redmond.
Nice.
So you know, and that's the only vote he got. Now there were a bunch of other guys that got votes that like Harrison Smith got a point from somebody. I didn't do that. So I had those 2. I think that was all that I had.
Yes, it was. That's all the Vikings you had. You know, the two specialists and then those 2 guys. I was looking through your thing. You were talking about calling them
3 specialists. I had Wright,
3
punter, kicker, long snapper, 2 defenders.
Saying
I wanted to put Jefferson somewhere, but the production just 2 touchdowns. You just though he's the.
It's not his fault, but you can't give it to him for pass.
No, I mean, I'm like second team. You can say, you know, there's 3 first team, 3 second team. It still wasn't enough. And
he had some drops this year, uncharacteristic of him to be on top of that. I looked through your list to see if there were other homers, and I'll be okay with this. This is, you voted for Myles Garrett as edge rusher, and I would agree with that one. So there was only one Browns guy that you put on there. So that's.
No, well, yeah, so far, yeah.
So far. What do you mean?
Well, the defensive rookie of the year was that linebacker is pretty good.
Okay. All right. Well, there we go. Okay. Got a little homer pick in there. Anyway, you know, I just was looking through. Terry McBride had a great year with the Cardinals, no matter who was throwing to him. But it just reminded me of I heard this week, you know, just people are really saying that the Vikings screwed up with TJ Hawkinson. Talk to me about TJ Hawkinson and what his future is going to be here. I mean, he's under contract, but he's under contract in a big way, and its production is certainly not bearing that out. That's not all his fault, but it is some of his fault. So what do you
and it's and I like TJ, and he's a productive guy. Part of it is the problem that they have at quarterback.
Yep.
He's not in Kansas City, he's not in San Francisco, he's not in these places where the line is good. He's got Trent Williams there and Brock Purdy and things like it's not all there for him. But in saying that, as much as I like him and much as I think he's a productive guy and can be a productive guy if JJ McCarthy elevates his play, I look at it and say Detroit wins. I mean, Detroit got rid of him, and then the Vikings pay him a bunch of money. Detroit gets Sam Laporta on a rookie deal. Sam Laporta is a hell of a tight end. As much as I like JJ or TJ and think he can still be a good player, he's not living up to his contract. And it's not his fault. It's not all his fault.
Right.
He also had a bad injury and missed 7 games last year. And, I think he's okay coming back, but not everybody comes back and is Adrian Peterson after these big injuries.
He doesn't get a lot of separation. I don't know how much he needs as a tight end go up the slot, but he doesn't, maybe, and that's part of a result of his catastrophic knee injury. Who knows? But he just doesn't separate like a Laporta or like some of these other guys.
When you play a young quarterback, and then like with Sam, he missed 7 games, and then he comes back, and it takes him a while to get up to speed, and then Sam's gone, and then all of a sudden after Sam, it's a rookie quarterback who's throwing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and his brain's racing like crazy, and he's probably he's not seeing the whole field. And then you get Carson Wentz, who just had been there for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and then he's a starter. So he's not seeing everything, or he's not as good a veteran as he was. It's still a new offense. And then you have an undrafted rookie who's probably not. Things are even faster for him than they were for JJ.
Right.
So this is not all TJ's fault. It's not like TJ had a terrible. It's all TJ. No, his situation is not as good as a lot of these other guys who are making his kind of money.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's put a pin in that, and we got a few other topics to talk about, and then we'll talk a little bit about the playoffs and all that the rest of the way. But so let's take a quick break and come back to Vikings Territory Breakdown. All right, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown with Mark Craig from the Star Tribune. Mark, the coaching carousel started in earnest on last Sunday night. We already heard they did a bloodletting out in Vegas when they let Pete Carroll go on the GM, I believe. Next morning, they started with more with John, not John Harbaugh, but there were coaches going. But there's nine openings, vacancies for head coaches this year, which is not. The odds are worsening for us for losing Brian Flores, but and Brian Flores accepted invitations to interview at Baltimore and Pittsburgh for the head coach and for Washington as a defensive coordinator. What does that say about him that he's interviewing for a lateral move? Is he trying to get some leverage, financial leverage because he's reportedly having some talks with the Vikings. They're trying to get it done. Kevin O'Connell said he expects him to be back, blah, blah, blah. What do you know about any of this situation?
They're trying to get him to sign, but who would sign if there's 9 openings?
Yeah.
Who would put their name on a contract if the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at you? The Pittsburgh Steelers, who you worked a year there, the people in the building, they know you. They signed off on Tomlin, and hats off to Tomlin. What was it? Nobody else wanted to touch this guy. Nobody else would. He was toxic. Everybody's afraid of having him around. Mike Tomlin goes out and says, "Yeah, come on in," and then lets him go to they go to Minnesota, and then now he's a head coaching candidate again with all that's going on with him. in his lawsuit against the league. And, you know, and it was Tom. I've heard that from people in Pittsburgh that I know really well, that this is not, this is not the Steelers hiding behind, oh, he stepped down. He did step down.
Oh, he did? Really?
I mean, it was not him getting fired.
Okay.
But I think when you work for Pittsburgh, there's only been 3 guys since 1969.
Yep.
Chuck Noll gets hired in 1969. Bill Cowher gets hired in 1992, and now the next guy is going to be hired in 2026.
Amazing.
I think whenever you're there for 19 years, and you're brought up in the Steeler, just their culture. You want to talk about culture. That's one group, I think, when you could say culture, and nobody's going to roll their eyes.
Right.
And I think he got to a point where he realized after 7 one and dones that he needed to step aside because it was time. And I think he's going to take a year off. Whenever he wants to get back in, he'll get back in.
Yeah.
Because there's 9 this year. That doesn't mean that there won't be 7 next year. I think the league average is like 7 every single year. So if you look right now, I'm going to do it here soon. Where is Kevin Connell on the seniority list of NFL coaches?
Racing to the top.
He's got to be. I think he might be top 10. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got to be.
Well, I mean, how many
9 openings? That's almost a third of the league. Good God.
So yeah, there's a lot of and a lot of mistakes are being made. A lot of good coaches are going to replace. I was reading something where in the AFC North, why don't you just send Harbaugh to Cleveland, send Stefanski to Baltimore, and send in other words, Tomlin, Stefanski, and Harbaugh just rotate. Just move one to your left, and see what happens next year.
I'd be fascinated by that, but then you'd be all giddy because you'd get one of those coaches in Cleveland.
Well, if the thing is, the Browns, to get a John Harbaugh's going to look at the Browns and laugh. I mean, they're going to say, "Are you kidding me? What your owner did to that franchise with that quarterback and ramrodding that through, and then firing the head coach in a year whenever."
Good point.
What's he supposed to do? Every good coach should tell Cleveland to go pound salt.
What does this say, though, Mark? I mean, you said average of 7 a year. I guess I'm surprised at the number 9, but when you say it's an average of 7, this is not out of the ordinary. This, and they're even talking, LaFleur's feeling some heat over in Green Bay, which it surprises me, which would be stupid on their part if they let him go. What does this say about this business, this job, whatever that this just happens? Because it takes time to set up a culture, the whole thing, bringing in your strategy, bringing in your people. It doesn't happen in one season. Carroll getting let go, I totally get. He shouldn't have come back. He's past his prime. But if you don't get 3 years minimum, 4 or 5 maybe to make it work, you really can't. But then on the other hand, if you don't do it in 1 or 2 years, you're gone because of the way it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look up when you got a chance. Look up what the first, I believe, 5 years of Tom Landry's career was. Tom Landry wouldn't have lasted to year, certainly not year 3. What it says is the owners have rabbit ears. The owners are too. The people up in the stands are making the decisions for the owners, and they're too impatient. The Wilfs actually are one of the more patient groups. I mean, they gave Zim and they gave Spielman ample time to do what they needed to do, and it couldn't get done. And then Zim's message got old, and his defense got hurt. So they had to move on when they had to move on. But other than the Rooneys and Baltimore, even though Harbaugh was there for 18 years, that seems like too much of a. They shouldn't have done that. But there's also the other side, and this goes back to John Madden said it. He coached 10 years, and he ulcers and everything ate him up. I guess coaching under Al Davis will do that, but he will believe that 10 years is all the message could go, and physically he couldn't go on anymore, so he had to get out. Bill Walsh always said your message lasts 10 years. He would have loved to come back and won another Super Bowl, but he got to that point and was like, that's it. And I think that I don't think we'll see I don't think we're going to see another 18, 19-year guy. I just don't see the league ever having again, at least, as far as I can see, another, like Sean McVay's not going to be with the Rams in year 19 or 18. Yeah. No, he's going to be in a booth somewhere, being the next John Gruden.
He was talking about leaving after he won the Super Bowl. He was talking.
Yeah, I think, and then he got a contract, I believe. So yeah, it's sort of like when Aaron Rodgers said he was going to do Jeopardy, and suddenly he got a contract in Jeopardy. You ever heard Jeopardy again? Did you?
Yeah. I got to ask you about this. I'm just, and I'm glad to have you here because you asked the question of him. Just shake my head. Jordan Addison was arrested in Florida at Seminole Hard Rock casino. The details I saw, he was there till 4 a.m. They asked him to leave 3 times. He wouldn't leave, and he finally had to escort him to the door. And then he was arrested on a charge of high misdemeanor trespassing. And this is just, you asked him after the end of the season, if I get this wrong, please correct me, what's the deal? And he said, the team doesn't have to worry about me with these off-season things.
If he came out, I basically said, because he has a 5th-year option come up in May, and I said, can they, do you think they'll trust you to give you the 5th-year option? And he said, well, I'm just going to keep working. That's for them to decide. And he's the master of saying the right things. He's also the master at, like, well, of course, that DUI and falling asleep on the highway or right in front of the airport with your foot on the brake. I guess that's pretty big. But he's getting into these little fires, these little things. It's enough for me. It's enough for me to, as talented as he is, it's enough for me to, like, I might be thinking I'm giving Naylor money and letting this guy, I don't want to say go, but not like I wouldn't let Naylor go because I'm going to put all my money in Jordan Addison. And this is another example. And he's one of the couple reasons why I talked to him. But one, we have an army of people, and they were all talking to the guys who retired or the quarterback who didn't finish the game. And I was like, I'm looking at the under. Who are in this locker room are the guys that next year are at the opposite end of Harrison Smith and CJ Ham? Who are the under 25 guys that is going to be the big part of the future of this team? And Addison's number 1 in my mind. And I don't know that. I mean, if you could trust him, he definitely is. And now I don't know where I would really, really like when it came time to give Justin Jefferson $35 million and make him the highest paid non-quarterback ever.
No-brainer.
I'd sign it in 5 seconds. Giving this guy big money, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, on its surface, it's not the worst transgression anybody in the NFL or even in a Vikings uniform has done. But good God, at the 3rd time around in what, this is 4th year maybe that he's had some off-field thing that is just going to be a distraction, going to have to go to court, going to have to figure it out. I mean, the NFL, for one, doesn't look kindly on a serial offender of certain nature. And certainly the people who have to write his checks certainly have to take pause when they go forward with this guy. It's just frustrating as hell. It's just, him answering your question should have put him on the straight and narrow, and this never should have happened. Should have been more.
He's got to answer to. That's what he's probably worried about. He's got to answer to me now. Whenever.
God dang.
But no, I hope that, because a lot of this stuff sort of makes you question whether there's some sort of problem of some sort, right, that hopefully if there is, that that people help him if he's willing to get help or whatever. But I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that there's just when there's continual smoke, there's you this is all about risk and reward in this league, and Justin Jefferson was no risk, all reward, and this guy is leaning more toward risk than reward to me, and that's a shame because he's the second best. So there's a lot of times on that offensive, when the offense goes on the field, he's the second best player on the offense.
Yeah,
and
I remember
if he can't eliminate this stuff when he's heading into a second contract, that makes me really concerned about giving him money.
That's a great point. I think it was you that told me that O'Connell was his version of pounding the table for this guy. He really wanted him, and I think that's why he's given him plenty of rope. But you got to figure Kevin's got to be thinking hard and long about where they want to go.
Well, and he embarrassed Kevin. They're over in London, and
I forgot about that one. Yeah,
they're over in London, and he's coming off a 3-game suspension, so he's screwed the team for 3 games. He misses the walkthrough in London. If I'm O'Connell, because O'Connell benched him for the first quarter, the first half, I think it was, he ultimately ends up catching the winning touchdown against the Browns, naturally. And but I would have fined him. I would, what's the max you could fine a guy? I would have fined him because they punished him, but they also punished the team. And maybe in a way, O'Connell wanted to do that because then you become more accountable to your teammates. I would think. Be like, hey, guy, we played 3 games without you, and then you come back and you miss a walkthrough. Get your stuff together.
Should.
And
guys thinking.
And Justin Jefferson, that you couldn't find a better role model. Yep. But he's also not a babysitter. Yeah. So the kid needs to grow up, and or if he doesn't grow up, he not only will he not get the money here, he's not going to get the money somewhere else.
All right. All right, we got to quickly get to the playoffs here. The Rams beat the Panthers, not handily, but they did. The Bears beat the Packers because the Packers gagged all over themselves. The Niners outlast the Eagles on the road, but lose George Kittle in the process. The Bills hang on to beat the favored Jaguars thanks to Josh Lewis. In my opinion, Patriots shut down the Chargers with smothering defense. Herbert is 0-3 in playoff games. Vikings don't want him. Steelers go down to the Texans, who put another great defensive performance on the field. So you and I we got to get to our picks because that's what everybody's waiting here. They waited an hour. That's what they want to hear.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's with us, still with us.
I missed I picked the Packers, and they should have won that game up 21-3 at halftime. They just gagged it away. And you picked the Bears, so you got that one. And then I got the Patriots-Chargers game right, and you picked the Chargers, so you got it wrong. So we're both 4-2. Both we missed the Eagles games. We both picked the Eagles, and they got beat. So we're still tied, so we got to continue this. And I just want to go and make some picks the next. So we got Broncos versus Bills, 1 versus 6 in the AFC, with Denver giving 1.5 points at home to the Bills. Who do you got in that one?
Well, the Bills were my AFC pick. Last week, the entire year, they talk about what? Home field advantage. Get the home field advantage. You got to have home field advantage. 4 of the road teams won last week. The Bills being one of them. Denver's a hard place to win. They got a good defense, but I like the Bills. I just like the experience. I like Josh Allen. That's my AFC pick, and I'm going to go down with them or win.
Well, for those last 2 reasons, I'm sticking with you. I think Denver's got a better defense. They have the less experienced quarterback. You got Josh Lewis, who's just been here so many times. He's going to will it to happen. I thought he did that last week. I think he'll do it again. I got the Bills as well. Number 2, Patriots hosting the number 5 Texans. The Pats are giving 3 points in this one. After what I saw from their defense, the Texans last week, it almost seems like too much.
Well, what I saw from New England's defense, the biggest swing and a miss for me last week was saying that the Chargers defense was going to teach Drake May about playoff football. Well, they did, but New England's defense did wow. Did I underestimate their ability to do what they did
Yes, you did.
which I shouldn't have, because
You did.
Herbert's offensive line was a disaster.
He is 0-3. God, he's just disappointing again.
Yeah, but that to me is not. That's not a stat that he should hang around just his neck. I mean,
You're right.
That's a guy that was under siege the entire. I mean, that was a great defensive game, but the Patriots, I mean, they must have blitzed on every play. I mean, it was just, it was a jailbreak. I think, almost the entire game, and I just like, as much as I want to pick Houston, I like that defense at home. I like New England's defense at home.
In this league, things start on the offensive line for success, and they finish with defense. So this is a tough one to pick. All right, I'm going to hold off my pick on this one to see if we've got all four the same. I'll take the Texans. I got the Patriots written down, but I've been leaning towards the Texans. I just got to see more out of it. CJ Stroud tried to give that game away last weekend. I mean, I was texting him, going, dude, what are you doing? He kept, putting himself in making bad decisions where he should have just thrown it away or eaten it or something, and he ends up fumbling and keeping their opponents in the game. So that would have been a lot worse than it was had he not coughed it up so many times. So I might hold off on that. All right, let's go to the NFC, and we got number 1 Seahawks hosting the number 6 49ers. The Seahawks a 7.5 favorite when I looked. All these things might have changed, but who do you got in this one? Seahawks and
it's just hard.
Niners.
The 49ers, what they've done this year is absolutely. I mean, you talk about a team that has reaffirmed that this is a team game. Not only your starters, but your depth, your not just your backup quarter, but backups everywhere. Granted, they probably couldn't have done this without McCaffrey. Thank God he was for them that he was healthy the whole year. Yeah, but then they lose Kittle. I mean, it's like another blow.
Yes.
They lost him early in the year. They
Eric
got him back,
Kendricks is playing on that team. That just amazes me to see Eric Kendricks playing on the defense for the Niners.
Right, and I believe Eric was. I think he was out of football, right?
Yeah.
He just kind of,
he's in there for Fred Warner or something. So
but that's where they're at, and I would like to see the 49ers win just because it's against all odds, but the Seahawks defense is a little too good, and them being at home, I'm going to go with the Seattle. Although I think I'm going to be rooting for the 49ers.
I'm calling that game the same way. I'd like to see the Niners weigh it. It's a more interesting story if they win it. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks, but I'm hoping for the Niners. Got number 2 Bears hosting the number 5 Rams, and it's supposed to be a very frigid Chicago, my son reports to me on Sunday. The Rams are giving 3.5 points. Who do you got in that one, Mark?
Yeah, I was thinking you must have been throwing bricks at your TV whenever they were, when the Packers were up 21-3, it's the third quarter, and LaFleur runs it 3 times in the third quarter. You got a 21-3 lead on the road, and you run it 3 times. You go 3 and out 3 times in the third quarter, and then it's like, why would you not try to shorten the game? I don't understand.
I would before you go on. I would have thrown my brick at the TV, but I was at the Wild game watching Quinn Hughes play, which was a gas, and so I thought it was over. I mean, at 21-3, I said, okay, they're going to hold on to this. And as I'm driving home, I'm hearing it go back. I said, what are you doing? So I was throwing it at my radio if I'd had a brick. But
I think it'll be a really good game. I love the Bears at home. I love the story about the Bears. I love Caleb Williams and what he's doing. I like their running game. But I'm just going with experience, calm head, the 37-year-old pro I think is going to win the MVP. And that's my Super Bowl pick. It was a Super Bowl pick at the beginning of the year. I think it's going to be a really good game, but I think the Rams do enough to win the game.
I should pick the Bears because then maybe they'd lose. I've been picking them to lose how long this season, against the 49 or against the Eagles against I picked the Packers last week, and I've been waiting for the Bears bubble to burst. And I guess I got to say it again. I think it's going to happen this weekend. The Rams, I think, are more experienced. The coach has been there more often. Caleb, there'll be some pressure on him from that defensive front. So I got to go with the Rams.
Yeah, and the Rams to me are a great story because when they ignored the draft for 7 straight years and didn't have a first-round draft pick, they built themselves with Stafford being number 1, bringing him in and bringing all these guys in. They win a Super Bowl in their backyard, and then all of a sudden they decide we want the draft to be our, whenever they couldn't spend the money, then they said we're going to build through the draft, and they built through the draft. They built, the year that Aaron Donald retires, they get 2 defensive linemen who are like some of the best in the league. So drafting means a lot. And also the Bears just feel like, this feels like one of those where, really good year. You win a playoff game, which the Vikings haven't been. Vikings have had really good years, and then they blow it by not winning a playoff game. You win your playoff game. You're putting on a hell of a show for your fans, but it's one of those where I just don't feel like you're just quite ready to make that next step. But the Bears aren't going anywhere next year.
All right. Well, then this is the kind of guy I've won this thing so many times. I'll take a hit here, and I'll take the Texans over the Patriots, just so we have a difference this week. If I just was going to pick all 4 the same as you, that's boring, right?
Well, yeah, and it's a good way to like send up the white flag, not the white flag, but to make it different because defense travels in this league, and it could be a really, really low scoring game, and that defense.
You're a defensive.
If you're supposedly going out on a limb, I don't know what the line is, but that's a good team to have as your.
New England's given 3 points, so
so that's a good one that I wouldn't be surprised if you win that one.
You'll you pinpointed that one a few days ago to me, so I know you're a defensive guy. You'll be enjoying that one. So, all right, well, those are our picks, and that's our podcast for the week. We'll be back again to do it next week. So thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mike Woldham, and thanks, Joe Johnson. Joe Johnson, he's another JJ, by the way. We got so many JJs that are excellent. We'll be back, and thanks to everybody for checking us out each week. We always appreciate it. We'll see you next week after the division round playoffs. And until then, I'm going to the Wild tonight, so go Wild and Skol.
Skol.